So you're fasting until what time?
22 minutes past.
Very exact.
Are we going to Nando's after this?
Oh, mate, we go Nando's every time. But this Nando's is going to get demolished.
Yeah.
2014, I woke up in the middle of the night and had an irregular heartbeat. It was going like 220 beats a minute. So I went to A&E. They luckily found an irregular pattern on my ECG, which signified a disease called Wolff-Parkinson-White. Someone told me about this race to row across the Atlantic from La Gomera in the Canary Islands to Antigua. I was like, that's a bit of me.
That's the instant reaction.
Yeah, that's a bit of me.
That's a bit of me.
I spent nearly 2 hours in a resuscitation room where people were having like chest compressions, being defibrillated. I had defibrillator pads on my front and back in case that my heart stopped. If you take a minute to reflect on that, you're like, well, I could have died. And so you think, why am I not doing these things, these opportunities that arise? And I felt it hugely the week that I had my pacemaker fitted and had all my autonomy stripped.
Yeah.
I slipped very quickly into depression. Going from like someone who went to the gym fastidiously at 6 a.m. to like not even be able to walk like 500 meters to the post office. You just lose all motivation. And then I thought, if I was slipping into that, like I'm sure other people have been slipping into that. And so the ability to potentially help people has been the most rewarding thing out of that.
This episode is sponsored by Streamline Studios.
You know, when me and Jacky started Bear Chat, George,
Yep.
we thought it'd be simple. But in reality, it's quite a lot. The editing, adjusting the cameras, the lighting.
Doing it by yourself is kind of impossible, but that's why we've set this place up. I'm over there, I'm handling the live edit, so I'm mixing all the cameras together whilst you chat, following the conversation.
Yeah, and for me, that's why Streamline Studios has been an absolute game changer, because we come, we record, it's all done, plugged onto the hard drive and ready to go when we leave.
For people that might be listening, that have thought about doing a podcast, they've got an idea, they've got a conversation they want to have, come and try it out.
If you want to get into podcasting, don't sit back and just wait. Come down to Streamline Studios and it's all edited live. You can publish your episodes as soon as you leave.
And listeners of this show will get 25% off their first booking. Quote BEAR25 at checkout.
You want us to wait 32 minutes before we start?
Yeah, just wait, George. Yeah, we'll just have a shot.
Surely on. Are we in?
I'll wait till
Yeah, oh, wait, wicked. So you're fasting until what time?
22 minutes past.
And are we going...
Very exact.
32 minutes.
And are we going to Nando's after this?
Oh, mate, we go Nando's every time. But this Nando's is going to get demolished.
Yeah.
How long have you been fasting for?
Since last night.
All right.
Yeah, since last night.
Easy money.
You can do it. Elliot, welcome, mate.
Thanks so much for having me.
No, mate, it's a pleasure. We were just talking about it before, and I'll tell you how me and Elliot got connected. We actually haven't spoke properly until today, but there's a lovely lady at my gym called Andrea, and she works, you actually know her, she works on the desk of David Lloyd.
She is lovely.
When you stay at mine, you always come to the gym. And she said, I know someone who goes, is it the gym? Same gym?
Yeah.
The same gym as me. It'd be really interesting to come on the podcast. And she keeps sending me like links. And I was like, all right, I'll reach out. I don't know if you'll get back to me. And you got back to me the same day. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I looked at your story through your Instagram and saw the journey you'd been on. I'm not going to butcher it. I'm going to hand over to you in a second, but I just want to say firstly, thanks for coming down. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So for some context, do you want to just tell the listeners a little bit about who you are? We can go back as far as you want, and a bit more about your story, and then right up until today.
Well, yeah. So I guess the thing that's relevant, I've actually been doing a lot of like work on like self-identity, motivation, purpose. So I've always found it funny that people describe themselves as nouns. So like I started like fast forward, sitting in the middle of the Atlantic, started writing a book called Not a Noun, i.e. that like we all define ourselves as like DJ, personal trainer, but like we're all way more than that label. So I guess we're rewinding all the way back to the beginning. So 2014, I woke up in the middle of the night and had an irregular heartbeat. It was going like 220 beats a minute. As like most 27-year-old blokes do, you think that's a bit weird, but not that untoward. Like went to work the next day. Everyone's like, Elliot, you look a bit tired. And I was like, yeah, I was up all night. Heart rate was going. And everyone's like, were you out last night? And I was like, no, nothing. And so they were like, well, you should probably see a doctor. So like, again, didn't want to go to the doctor, didn't want to go to A&E. Like no one wants to like do it that if you're not feeling, if you're feeling okay, you don't want to like put strain, etc. So rang NHS Direct and they were like, okay, go to A&E. So I went to A&E and then they luckily found an irregular pattern on my ECG, which is known as a delta wave, which signified a disease called Wolff-Parkinson-White. So it's a shortcut between my atrium, my ventricles, top part and bottom part of my heart. So at this stage I was playing rugby, like level 4, so Prem, Champ, Nat 1, Nat 2. So we were Nat 2 Dorking, a club that I've been playing for since I was 6 years old.
Oh, so you've always been very physical and played rugby?
Yeah,
from a young
absolutely.
age,
Yeah,
young
I mean,
age, so.
at this point, I was like 120 kilos, big lad. Enjoyed being that sort of big, strong presence in the rugby pitch.
Yeah.
But I've been playing with like for that club since I was 6 years old. So every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I saw 30, 60 of my best mates running out on the field with them. And then very quickly, everyone said, you've got to give up rugby. I was like, ooh. At the time, and going back to sort of the identification thing of like what I am, I never really identified as a rugby player. I wouldn't have ever said that I was that sort of out and out jock, like big rugby player, but they're like, which probably helped me a bit. So like when it was taken away and everyone said, stop playing rugby, I kind of intuitively fell into CrossFit, so competitive exercise. And what that replaced for me in hindsight was I loved attainment gratification, like the scoring tries, like doing something cool, like getting that sort of level of achievement, and that was replaced. And so scoring tries and carrying ball was replaced with smashing big clean and jerks and snatches, smashing a workout. So that was one element. The community element, I mean, CrossFit gets a bad rap for being a bit of a cult, but the reason it gets a bad rap is because everyone who does it talks about it all the time, because a lot of people who have never done community sport before, like they might have just been to the gym, then they go to CrossFit and they're like, oh, the community element of this is cool. And then you talk about people. If a lot of people had found rugby or football in their 20s or 30s, they'd probably talk about it quite a lot, wouldn't they? I mean, people talk about football all the time. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, football is a cult. Why does CrossFit get a rap for being like, because people talk about it, because it's a good thing, right? And so the community element there, and then the sort of idea of being a role model towards the younger kids coming through in the rugby pitch. Same with CrossFit. Like I was naturally quite big and strong from the CrossFit. Technically awful. Sorry, from rugby, I was technically awful. Like I could, my big lifts have not really improved over. Well, they have a little bit, but over the last 10 years of doing CrossFit, but technically I'm a lot better and therefore they have improved. So intuitively, I kind of fell into that. And I wish I'd kind of had a bit more of a sort of framework of like being lost as a rugby player. So like that's where sort of the idea of writing the book. So where the idea of the book came from was middle of the Atlantic. I spent 44 days on my own. I decided in 2020, someone told me about this race to row across the Atlantic from La Gomera in the Canary Islands to Antigua. I was like, that's a bit of me. That's
the instant reaction.
Yeah, that's a bit of me.
That's a bit of me.
and if you think about it, it's like, I liked being a bit out there, doing things that are a bit weird. Like I've always been, like I've realised I'm wearing a Norwegian jumper. Like I loved going or like walking in Norway. So like for all my like summer holidays on my own, I'd been walking with myself or a couple of mates. And that sense of adventure and being out in the wild and just stepping outside of your comfort zone, like supporting yourself, like eating food that you've taken with you. That was really rewarding. And then this row came up, and so I messaged a few guys at the gym. One guy, the guy who owns the gym, is an ex-GB rower, and I said, "Fraser, shall we row the Atlantic?" He was like, "Ooh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea." And I was like, "Okay." And then another guy a guy called Nico, he's cycled to the Alps on a penny farthing. He was like, "I'm in." And then another guy who was also like, he'd won Henley 8, so like one of the biggest like river rowing competitions.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'm in." And so we had like 3 or 4 or 5 people like already been like, "We're going to row the Atlantic." And then I applied to the race and I said, "Look, what is the process of like the race?" And they sent me all the information. He said, "There's no spaces in the race for 2 years. For 3 years." So this was December 2020, post lockdown. So maybe it'd gone a bit like stir crazy, like get out. But then So I then messaged, right? They're like 3-year waiting list. And then I thought, I was obsessed by this idea. Like I went to bed, like dreamt of waves. I was like, this is the best thing ever. And I was like, am I going to keep these other 3 people as motivated as me for doing this? And then I messaged the WhatsApp group. I've got a great like screenshot of it. And I said to the group, I was like, guys, I think I'm going to do it on my own. And Fraser's like, yeah, I didn't think my back would hold up anyway. And I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, okay. And then the sort of the evolution of like, you have to nail your motivation for doing something as like kind of wild as that. So it's going to consume your life for 3 years. The fundraising, the sponsorship, the training, the admin that goes into that was massive. And so you have to sort of nail the motivation to make sure you're doing it. And it came down to the fact that I work in a family business, so I wanted to kind of an autonomous. And then, so that was all of these things are like, on reflection, they were hinted at, but now sort of as I thought about them, talked about them so much, I now know that I needed an autonomous project away from the family business. I wanted to raise funds and awareness for a cause, and like how better to do that than I missed out the fact that I had a pacemaker fitted in February 2020, and so like my heart, I was in and out.
I missed that bit.
Yeah.
So, quite important
So
part.
so for 6 months I was in and out of hospital, pacemaker fitted in February 2020, and it's weird. I forget it because it's not like a big thing for me. Like I just kind of, and we can talk about resilience in a minute, but like I just got on with it, and therefore realised that it was a great opportunity to raise funds and awareness for a cause. And like I approached the British Heart Foundation and I said, how about the headline, man with pacemaker rows Atlantic solo for British Heart Foundation? I thought that's quite a cool thing. And obviously then the sense of adventure as well. So those three things were really like my cornerstones of motivation. And actually at the time, it was probably like the adventure and the ability to win a race that was so crazy was like my overall motivation. And that has all changed from then as to what I've held most important from the event, which has been being able to talk to people who have had a heart arrhythmia diagnosis.
Wow.
And then take something from that, whether it be, I can play with this guy's rode the Atlantic with a pacemaker, I can run for the bus or play with my grandkids. Because a lot of people, and I felt it hugely the week that I had my pacemaker fitted and had all my autonomy stripped and said, stay at home for 4 weeks. You slip very quick, as soon as your autonomy is taken away, you slip very quickly into depression. My partner at the time said, can you go to the post office for me? Because I was like week 3, I could walk around, like not get my heart rate. And she'd get home and I'd still be watching like Jeremy Kyle, or not quite Jeremy Kyle, but obviously that's the cliche. But I'd be watching daytime television. Going from like someone who went to the gym fastidiously at 6 a.m. to like not even be able to walk like 500 meters to the post office because you just lose all motivation. And then I thought, if I was slipping into that, like I'm sure other people have been slipping into that. And so the ability to potentially help people has been the most rewarding thing out of that.
That's a huge thing. And I actually talked about this off camera with you. And the reason we want to speak to people like you, and by the way, thanks for coming on and fucking well done. That is fucking incredible. Is the fact that people can look at you. You've just said your story in 10, 11 minutes. Even a snippet of that can help someone who's going through some shit to go, actually, I could possibly do the X, Y, and Z. That alone is a motivation for, even if you can help one person with a conversation like this, it's worth doing. But you had that motivation to go from playing rugby. How often do you play rugby? You play
you do training Tuesday, Thursday, play on Saturday. So you normally like for the whole season for 6 months, 7 months. Yeah.
And I'm curious, how did you go? What happened? So when you were playing rugby, why couldn't? Because you can do CrossFit, which is fucking hard. Yeah. Is it the banging in this?
It was the contact. So it was the contact thing and the sort of stressing your central nervous system with that kind of. It's strange. And every time I'd play and make a tackle, I'd go into some sort of arrhythmia. So Wolff-Parkinson-White, which was like the initial diagnosis. I then started getting diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, which is very common. Like 1 in 5 people have that diagnosis of atrial fibrillation in their life, but a lot of it is manageable. And that's supraventricular tachycardia, which is like a very hard. That was the 220 beats a minute. That was a symptom of the Wolff-Parkinson-White. And so
220.
Yeah, it's quick. But the weird thing is, so like I was playing rugby. So I was told to give up, and obviously when you're told by a doctor to give up, you're like, yeah, I'm 27, I'm invincible, I can do what I want. So I then carried on playing. I even played at Twickenham for Surrey as my last like competitive match, and then it kept flaring up. Luckily, it didn't flare up in that match. And then I came back to pre-season and had to run out with the derelicts, so like the old boys. It's only over 35, but yeah. I know, yeah. Well, I'm 38, yeah, now I'm like, yeah. But at the time, I was like 27, right? And then I went off, and obviously my heart started going, and you feel your pulse, and you're like, ooh. And I feel okay. So like I step off the pitch being like, not feeling well, chaps. They're like, we're the old boys. We're the ones who meant to be like having the heart attacks. And you're like, I was like, yeah, but I know I've got a history of this. And so like, again, rang NHS Direct and they're like, what's going on? I was like, I've gone into like ventricular tachycardia. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll send you an ambulance. Like 20 minutes later, one of the little vans come, put me on an ECG, and he calls the blues and twos, and I'm rushed to hospital. And it just shows that like, and I'm sitting in the hospital, sitting in the ambulance to the guys being like, I really feel like I shouldn't be in this ambulance. I'm talking to you, like I'm compos mentis. I'm not like, yeah, but your heart could stop any minute now. And I'm like, oh yeah, but you don't still, and you're 27, you don't like think about it, and no one wants to ring 999. Like, I mean, not no one.
No, but I completely understand. You
as
don't
in someone who's feeling well, you like, if you're logical, you shouldn't necessarily call 999 if you're feeling 100%. But like when it comes to your heart, it is. I should have called 999, but like, yeah.
Bear Chat is powered by Tenzing Natural Energy. As pure as your morning coffee, but without the jitters.
Whether it's the early morning grind, the afternoon slump, or the pre-workout that you need for that session, we've got you covered. It's 100% plant energy, no added sugar, and definitely no crash. Just clean, natural energy to keep you going.
And because we love you, anyone listening to this show gets 30% off. So quote BEAR30 to get your boost.
You can't fuck about with that. The doctors, when you got diagnosed with, I can't say the name, there's about 14 different words.
Yeah, there's too many.
Did you get advice from medical professionals to say, don't do, well, what you're doing CrossFit now, don't do that?
Yeah, well, initially there was, I went through so many. At one point, the procedure to correct irregular patterns of conductivity in your heart are called ablations. And it's essentially like, they burn your heart or freeze it to insulate irregular wiring, right? Okay. And so I went into hospital one time, this is flared up, so I go into hospital and they're doing an ablation for one of the arrhythmia. And let's put it this way, it would be like the wiring in your house.
Yeah.
You've got upstairs, downstairs, and there's a shortcut between like your bedroom and your kitchen, but it should go through a light switch in the stairs, right? This is a really good analogy. I've never used this one before. So basically, like the shortcut between your bedroom and your kitchen. So you're turning your bedroom light on, and the kitchen light comes on. You're like, that's not right. So that's what was happening. Yeah. So what they need to do is insulate that bedroom to kitchen like wiring. But it so happened that it was very close to the natural switch, which is on the stairs, right? That's called your AV node. I'm really happy with this analogy. And so they go in and they insulate that accessory shortcut, but what they ended up doing is cutting out the regular pattern, so that just the lights downstairs wouldn't come on at all. Right. So my ventricles weren't beating, and that's called heart block.
Right.
So I went into what's known as 3rd degree heart block, which is like a complete disassociation between your top part and your bottom part of your heart. And then I was like booked in to have a pacemaker fitted, and this is like 2018, 2 years before I ended up having it fitted. So for 2 weeks, they were like, don't get your heart rate over 100. Like I'd run upstairs and it wouldn't go over 80 anyway. So like I'd get lightheaded because my heart just couldn't keep up with the oxygen need. So 2 weeks later, go in for my pacemaker, first pacemaker.
How old were you then, sorry?
Like 31. Yeah, 31.
2018.
Yeah, 31.
Yeah.
And So I go and they do my admission ECG. So they come and like they shave my chest and they like gave me intravenous antibiotics to like prepare me for like prepare your body for like the fact that you're having an operation. And then the consultant comes down and looks at my admission ECG and he's like, "You're back in sinus rhythm, as in everything is okay." I was like, "Okay, so what happens now?" He's like, "Well, you can go home." And I was like, "What? Yeah, but you've been told me for the last 2 weeks not to get my heart rate over like 100, and now everything's fine again. So like, can I go back and train?" And he was like, "No, don't train. Just keep under 130." I was like, "Well, how does this work? Now what happens for the rest of my life? Like, what's going on?"
Wow.
And so I then obviously didn't take that as an answer.
No.
Like,
Neither would I.
Yeah, I was like, no. And so I kept emailing him. And so I was like, "Look, I think I'll be all right. Look, can I come into the clinic and put me under sort of a exercise regime, and you can manage my heart or monitor my heart under these conditions to see what happens?" So I went in and I went on a stepper and got my heart rate up to like 160, 170, and then came back down again. And everything was fine. So like, I was like, okay. He's like, "Okay, so now you can go and exercise again." So I went back and started exercising again and everything was fine. And then a year later, I had a knee operation, just like a meniscus repair in my left knee from too much training and walking and hiking in Norway. Yeah. And my heart went down to 4 beats a minute. So I'm sitting there like local anesthetic, spinal block, and I'm lying on the bed. And this is like after like knowing 6 years of having my heart like in and out. And so I'm lying on the bed, like looking up, like chatting to the orthopedic surgeon, like fascinated by like the anatomy of my knee. And I was like, "Oh, hang on, I feel really lightheaded." And he was like, "Oh, it's probably just a vasovagal reaction." So vasovagal is where like if someone's doing something to your body, like cut a big cut or like taking blood, your heart slows down to stop you from bleeding out. That's like the natural reaction of your body. And I was like, "Nah, that's happened to me before from like the other like 10 procedures I've had over the 6 years, whatever." And I was like, because normally then you get clammy, like when that happens. And I was like, "No, this is slightly different." It was like when you get up in the middle of the night to go to the loo and you stand up too quickly and you feel faint. And I was like, "That's how I feel." And then the anaesthetist looked at the screen and I was essentially flatlining because that only measures like a 6-second gap. And so my heart was beating every 10 seconds.
So it was just...
So it was like flatlining. And so he was like, but obviously I'm still talking to him. So he knows that I'm like alive. You're in the room. And like he went like a bit white and like gave me an injection of like, I can't remember what the name is, but like something to speed my heart rate up.
Epinephrine or something.
It's similar to that. Yeah. But and then the orthopedic surgeon, like classic orthopedic surgeons, like, "Don't worry, chaps, I'm nearly finished." Like, as in with his like goggles on, like doing like arthroscopy, like. And then he came over and he said, and at this point I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that something. I was lightheaded, and then I wasn't because the anaesthetist sorted out. That was like, and then I went into recovery, and the orthopedic surgeon was like, "Oh, Elliot, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize what was going on." I was like, "What is going on?" He's like, "Oh, your heart rate went down to like 4 beats a minute." I was like, "Oh, that's really slow." and then he then spoke to his cardiologist friend in the same department. I had like a week-long ECG put on, so like I had stickers on for a whole week. Went back and it turns out that the heart block was still there. So like although some of the conductivity had grown back, it wasn't grown back fully. So then my pacemaker was fitted and that regulates.
Well, so you actually went a year where you didn't obviously have the pacemaker because you essentially tested that you were fine, right?
Yeah.
And then and if you hadn't had that knee operation, who knows what would have happened?
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. So I could have just passed that. So I like to think it's lucky that I mean, obviously the amount of drugs in my system from the knee operation, like the anesthetic, the local anesthetic, the like use of gas to like calm you down, the spinal block, the tourniquet on my leg. So like all of those things, like you're never going to be in that situation.
Quite a lot, isn't it? When you think about it, it's quite a lot, like a combination of like several different, all doing different things all at once.
Yeah, and so it was very unlikely that I'd ever have a tourniquet around my leg, that many drugs in my system, like spinal block, and so it was unlikely to happen outside of a hospital. In that sort of and so it is lucky, but it's also yeah, it's great that it got caught and then the pacemaker's there. And it only now paces 15, well, it resynchronizes my heart. So it doesn't pace it from a sinus perspective, which is the initial beat. It synchronizes the beat to make it so that it doesn't stop beating halfway through.
Yeah, that's what it does. How does it work? Because I actually don't know how a pacemaker works. Is it electrical? Is it?
It is, yeah. So I have a
is.
little lithium battery.
Okay.
There's pacemakers and there's pacemakers. Like, as in, some people's pacemakers literally just keep their heart beating metronomically 60 beats a minute, and that's that you tend to find them in older people whose heart just can't keep rhythm at all, and that paces them 100% of the time. And then technologically advanced ones like even measure the like blood oxygen levels to like test how much your heart needs to beat and link to like, so it will sense also how much your body is trying to allow your heart to beat, and then like keep up with that and resynchronize it to the right timing. Yeah, it's amazing.
You got an app?
I do have an app. Yeah.
Oh,
but I can't turn it on and off though, even though my government's like, sharp.
So you've got your pacemaker. At that point, have you been given any advice? That's what I was kind of trying to get to. Have you been given advice to say, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, because you've now gone and done the most incredible feat that hardly anyone will ever do. So I want to know where you've gone from having your pacemaker, leaving hospital. What advice have you been given to just go, fuck it, I'm going to just roll the Atlantic?
Well, I think whether it's... yes, I was given advice to like, be careful of the leads, so like don't bang them and damage them. But I mean... and it's also like I find it dangerous for me to say what I do because it's like
people know,
but it's not suited to. Yeah. I suppose it's all over
it's
Instagram.
all over YouTube.
Yeah, it's all over Instagram. Yeah. But as in like,
it's a bit public.
This is also true. Yeah. As in,
I know what you mean.
I should. Yeah. I don't. When people say, "Oh, I like it," people reach out to me all the time. It's like, I had a pacemaker fitted. I used to do CrossFit. Can I still do CrossFit? I'm like, I'm not the one who can tell you whether that's right or not.
Yeah, of
course.
I probably take risks greater than I should do. Like, but so every time, I mean, I've had my pacemaker 5 years, and every time I go in for my like annual check, the only thing I worry about is, are the leads intact? Because that's like the hardest thing to replace, because I've got 3 meters of leads, like three 1 meter leads that like go to 3 parts of my heart that start here and then come up and round, and they are really hard to replace, because you can imagine they end with a little like pigtail screw that like screws into your heart, and obviously then that scar tissue then closes that over to like meld it as part of your heart, and if you damage those, taking them out is obviously very hard. But yes, I was given advice as to like, don't bang it, don't knock it, don't do contact sport. Like I don't want to like damage the leads in any way. But in terms of getting my heart rate up and down, like cycling, I can still get my heart rate up to like 190 and back down again quite quickly. I'm way fitter than I was ever before my pacemaker. And actually, it makes me wonder if my heart conditions were holding me back through like my rugby playing. I was always not the fittest, despite trying really hard. And so I wonder if the atrial fibrillation as I was growing up could have been a reason why my heart was not beating efficiently. So yeah, had some. But then I wrote to my cardiologist who had taken up indoor rowing through lockdown, and he's like, "Good lad." And I was like, "Hey, what do you think about me doing rowing the Atlantic?" He's like, "Well, it's got proof that it works because it's like 3 years in, and the battery's not too low, so that
you got enough charge."
Yeah. Literally, it's like, because like the battery life is like 10 to 12 years. I've had it. I had it for 3 years.
Okay,
and then he was okay with it. Yeah, so.
Wow. What do you think of that story, Pete?
Yeah, I'm just sat here connecting the dots, listening. I'm watching Elliot talk, and there's a lot. And I agree with your point though, based on your story. I think when you was doing rugby, maybe it was something that obviously wasn't noticed and probably would have been obviously clearly holding you back. And now to see you doing what you're doing, but how like. Because I've always thought about this, because I'm very active. I like going out on my bike and I like cycling and all this. And the only thing that ever really, truly does deep down scare me is like, what if one day I can't exercise anymore, or I've got a condition or someone tells me something? where I can't do it anymore. So for you to be where you are now and do what you do now, you clearly went through a transitional stage where you was at home watching daytime TV and Jeremy Kyle. You know, how did you go through that to then decide that you're going to row the Atlantic and then obviously do the things that you do?
Yeah,
now?
I think it was. I think just being really stubborn.
Yeah.
Just not taking no. Yeah, just refusing to take no for an answer is like what, and just slowly pushing myself outside that comfort zone or outside what should be right or not, and then testing the waters and then coming back in and just going for it really. But I think what spurred me on, it was like it also highlights the brevity of life, right? You think instead, I spent nearly 2 hours in a resuscitation room where people were having like chest compressions, being defibrillated. I had defibrillator pads on my front and back in case that my heart stopped. And so you think, if you take a minute to reflect on that, you're like, well, I could have died. I could. And so you think, why am I not doing these things, these opportunities that arise? And so, and then I have some really close friends at the gym who just push each other on to do stuff. And it's that environment, surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, who want to do similar stuff. And Fraser, who's the owner of the gym, we have a great relationship. We're best mates now, known each other for 10 years. And all we do is compete with each other at stuff. But he coaches me to do those things. But he's much better than me at indoor rowing. And I took him out on the boat and we start, as in on the ocean road, just training. And we got about 5 hours into like a 36-hour row, and he's like, I think I've had enough now. He's like, can we go fishing? I was like, yeah, we can.
36-hour row.
That was just a little training row we went on. Yeah, it was
36 hours.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, the Atlantic was 44 days.
I know, but this is
1 hour.
That's a huge event. But was this just like we're just going to do 36 indoor row?
No, we did out on the sea. Yeah.
All right, well, it's outdoor. It's fine then. No, I don't know why I asked that question. But like 36 hours. I'm doing a 24-hour race in June. Running, yeah. Raising money for Miles's
wicked, yeah.
Our friend died of cancer a couple of years ago, and of skin cancer. I'm going to raise money for the skin cancer charity. But I'm looking at that 24-hour race and going, because I don't have to run the whole thing. I'm going to like run, walk. I'm going to trying to get 100 miles in 24 hours. I have no idea I'm going to be able to do it. But when you said 36 hours, I'm shitting myself at just walking a few kilometers in June. But rowing for 36 hours seems just fucking terrifying.
It's that you're rowing probably for 2, and well, you switch as well. So like, it's not horrendous. But when you say I don't know if I can or not, my favourite, so I did a lot of psychological prep for the row with these guys who trained Eurofighter pilots in the RAF, and I think obviously everyone thinks of the mental side, the physical side of rowing the Atlantic. You're only human propulsion for 44 days, especially when you're solo. But I think the mental aspect is so important, and the sort of learnt lessons from preparing mentally have been far more valuable than any physical sort of things that we've been talking about. So I overestimated how much of a physical impact you can have on the row. Probably to my detriment. So that it is a race. I wanted to win the solo race. I ended up coming second. And I just couldn't understand in the middle of the Atlantic for a bit what more I could do. And that really ate at me for a long time until I realized that it was just the wind, the waves, the positioning. You can be 30 miles north or south and you can make an extra 50 miles a day. And then that's really, but yeah, so saying I think I can. My favorite saying that I've sort of picked up on is, if you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. It's like the best thing. I'm sure. It's a bit old, but like, if you actually think what that as in when people said to me, "Oh, you're rowing the Atlantic," I could never do that. I used to be like, everyone could do it. And then I sort of get a bit bored of people saying, "Oh, I don't think I could do that." And I'm like, if you keep thinking that, you probably can't. And it is mad. Like it is, but it's a binary switch, right? As in, it's what. what are the elements of your training, of your like preparation, of your psyche that will flick that binary switch to be like, I know I can get 100 kilometers, or it's 100 miles, or 100 kilometers.
100 miles.
Yeah, 100 miles.
Yeah. It's 100 kilometers I can do.
Yeah, 100. I was going to say 100 kilometers is easy. But like, 100 miles. Yeah, I was like, what is it that will make you think I can do 100 miles? And so we strive towards those little things to make those little differences, so that the big difference is, I know I can do 100 miles.
Well, that's interesting. You say you come in here, you're absolutely massive lad, played rugby and now rode the Atlantic, and you're saying your psychological aspects of your training were more important than the physical aspects. I find that fascinating, especially something like a 44-day row across the Atlantic. And you're not just rowing on a flat surface, you're rowing in waves. I've seen some of these videos that you were crazy shit. Yeah, any moments where you were like,
I lost my GoPro on day 3, which is really sad.
No.
But you didn't have people on you. Couldn't they just give you a spare? Was it not like...
No, it's good. I didn't see one other boat until like my birthday on the 22nd of January, which was like 4 days to the end. Yeah.
Oh, no way. I thought there might have been like, like support boats and shit.
You take everything with you. You sleep on the boat.
Everything, yeah.
So it's all your food.
I got that wrong. Fuck.
Yeah. It looks like, well, you've seen it clearly. It looked like a spaceship, don't it?
It did look like a bit of a
on
spaceship.
water.
But yes,
UAP.
So solo, pure solo from when you left, how many days until no one was there? Straight away? Day one?
I probably saw... On day 3, I saw someone on my radar on a little light, as in don't
count that.
Not radar, but like AIS, and a little, and that was another boat, another pairs team that they were seasick, and I chatted to them, and I passed them. Then they beat me at the end, but like it's the first week we were all on world record pace, as in like the whole race. There's 39 boats in the race. Because we had such big weather. We had like 30 knots of wind and like 8 meters of swell behind us. So like we're surfing down at like 15 knots down these waves. So for the first week, I was like, this is it. I'm smashing it. World record, going to be there before my birthday.
Yeah.
And then the whole weather just stopped. And like, it was like mill pond. And like, I'm not joking. There was like not a ripple. And like, you can't tell the difference between like land and sea. Sea and sky.
Yeah.
And that's when it got tough. But like, yes, the mental prep was important in like for the race, but I think in terms of reflecting on what the biggest takeaways were, and like the mental prep followed by the execution, followed by the reflection, how useful those elements are. Like I can train 20 hours a week, and it's it's not neither here nor there, but if I can, the mental side of things were the most useful to be able to like share with people, because telling someone to train like this or like that is quite easy. But the psychological aspect of getting them to do that and then them finding it useful, I think it is far more valuable than the physical.
Yeah. The journey, 3 years you said, from when you applied to it and when you could actually do the race. Mm-hmm. What I want to know is, once you've finished that race, when you get back, let's talk about the psychological aspects of that. What was that like, and how did you cope with? I mean, because I'm imagining that the highs and the lows were crazy. So yeah, let's talk us through that. What was that like in the moment?
It's weird because obviously, well, firstly, you spent 44 days on your own. Yeah. Like that is amazing and weird at the same time. I mean, I had a sat phone, so like every other day I'd ring someone, speak to them for 15 minutes, but actually that's a waste of quite valuable rowing or eating or like admin time. And so the tolerance for triviality disappears. So it was arrived in Antigua, beautiful place, like lots of family, some friends, but they didn't. Yes, they all knew each other, but sort of the admin, everyone wants to see you, and you feel sort of a responsibility that they've come, all this way to see to Antigua, and like it's beautiful. But they're like classically, I keep saying, is when I said I don't want to make any decisions. Like I've been making decisions on my own for 44 days. Like what, like whether to row to the I've been like the greatest thing about doing it solo is the autonomy. The worst thing about doing it is the autonomy.
Yeah.
As in, you have no one to bounce ideas off. And like I found myself sort of standing on the bow cabin being like, what on earth am I going to do? Like, and you're just thinking to yourself, you're like, okay, I'll do that. Yeah. And it's great, but like very empowering. But so I said, I don't want to make any decisions. And then they were like, oh, where should we go for lunch? Like, and then someone said, oh, I don't want to go there. The coffee wasn't very good, or the service. And I was like, who cares? I like, it's so irrelevant. Like, as in,
coffee.
Yeah, you're like, the service, like, you're in Antigua. It's really nice. Like, obviously, it's a bit unfair on them, but like, it is those little things. You're like, okay, that was the first thing of like tolerance for the trivial things are just so meaningless. It's so meaningless when you've been out there and seeing the world. But like, that was hard. Then the sort of, am I always going to be defined by rowing the Atlantic? And then, so that the sort of identity of, I don't like you. And then someone said, oh, you can't always down out on it. I was like, yeah, I don't want to either. Like, as in, and so there is like that pressure, like everyone asks, what's next?
I was just about what I was going to say. Did you have that feeling of like, I've done that now?
I didn't. No,
you didn't.
I didn't. I didn't have the feeling of like, oh, now I must do something. But everyone asks, what are you going to do? And I was like, and sort of, because I get asked by every single person, they're like, I was really friendly. I was like, I don't think I'm not got anything planned yet. And then eventually you get a bit annoyed. You're like, why does there have to be something next? Like, why? And then people say, oh, but if you're the sort of person who can row the Atlantic, then maybe you can do something else. It's like, yeah, but why? And so eventually then the British Heart Foundation, who I raised money for, was like, do you want to run the marathon for us? I was like, perfect. I'll do that. That'll do.
Do you know why? I've got an opinion on this. We do this in life. It's like the grass is always greener. There's always something else. You get to a certain level, whether it's personal or career or whatever it is. When you achieve something, it's like, right, now what next? In life, we do it. But I love that you haven't got that. We've got to go and do something next, because I have that and it fucking does my head in, because I achieved something great or hard and I'm like, right, that was amazing. But instantly within a few days, I'm like, right, now what? Now what? It's like almost trying to prove something to myself. But I think it's beautiful that you haven't got that same thought process.
What was it? I think it was a Rio Ferdinand interview that he talks about that, when they're like in the Man U dressing room, don't they? And then he talks about as soon as they won the FA Cup, they're like, right, now what's next year going to happen? And like, let's be happy with our success for a little bit. Yeah. But also, I don't think the gravitas of the Atlantic really sinks in either for a long time. And I still have sort of reflection. I'm like, and the moment I picture is when I'm like due north of like the easternmost point of Brazil, and I'm like, I'm basically in the Western Hemisphere, as in I'm west of the Atlantic. And then you realise you've still got 1,000 nautical miles to go. And you're like, that's a third of the way. Like, wow, it is really big, isn't it? And like, do you know on like Google Photos on photo, when you like look at photos that you've taken across the world? You have this like little hot heat train across the Atlantic every time I go, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. And they're all identical photos of sea.
Nothing different.
There's like a couple of birds, a few rainbows, a few sunsets, and like my spotty legs. But like, yeah, I like the idea of, and so what is next is...
That wasn't my question.
No.
Is it, do you feel the necessity to want to do something? Because I struggle with that.
It's different to what, as in you're thinking like potentially the question could be what is next in like, what's the next adventure? What's the next achievement? But like, I actually think for me, what's next is you have all this learnt experience, and I'd love to share that. Like, and so like from the beginning, I started writing that book. Well, I didn't write the book, but I sort of set out ideas and notes and chapters on the Atlantic for Not a Noun. And it's the idea that a lot of men struggle with their mental health and their identity and therefore motivation. It's like, who am I? Like, what is... And so let's take the rugby player example. Is, had I known that if I had lost rugby player, the values that I held dear to playing rugby was the community, the competitive element, being the role model, potentially being outside, I could have like come up with a new plan to like find something to replace those values and actions and feelings of that identity. Intuitively fell into CrossFit, and I still went walking in Norway, like to be outside, and like I lived in the countryside. So like I had all 4 of those elements that were intuitive. Like I just happened to find them, and on reflection, let's say someone breaks their ACL, they were going to be a professional rugby player. And that could be a feeling of loss, right? And a mourning for your own identity.
Yeah, yeah.
So trying to like put some, and blokes love a toolbox, right? So like we not necessarily like therapy is great and talking about stuff is great, but like often as blokes we just want to like sort stuff out and like put something in place. And so trying to like come up with this book to help people like work out what their identity and values are so that they can then build their motivation and purpose and go from there. So that's really for me what would be best for what's next rather than row the Atlantic. And that lasts forever rather than, I did this thing once and crossed the sea.
Yeah, no, I love that.
It's an interesting answer that you've given though, because I'm just sat here listening to you, Elliot, and just watching how you.
I love this because I just see you just sitting all like,
yeah,
you haven't even talked until episode. It's mint.
And I'll tell you why is because like that was going to be a question, and it's the typical question that's asked because like not everybody gets diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome and then gets a pacemaker and then goes and rows across the Atlantic. So it's like there's a driver that you have that's very different to other people. And it's trying to understand obviously what that driver is. But the way that you've just mentioned it there, that's not the answer I expected you to give. Really? I think it's a really good answer. I think it's brilliant. I think it's got so much more value than the what next card that like I want to read the book. Do you know what I mean? And I think now, in today's society, we talk about it a lot and we experience it as well ourselves. But in today's society, particularly with social media platforms, and everybody has a personal brand almost now that they have to almost kind of live up to, or this compelled feeling that I have to post something interesting in my life to be somebody is probably more prevalent now than ever, and in particular in men. So I think for you to be taking your learning of your experience, yes, you've done a fantastic achievement, but you're not actually like wanting to kind of push that out there. You're more about what is it that I've learned from that can be of value to other people. And I think that's it's different. That's different as well. But I just think I get the sense talking to you that that's going to give you so much more.
Absolutely, yeah. Lots more. It would feel more rewarding than because in a way. The Atlantic still doesn't feel like a huge achievement. Yeah. It's actually what is the achievement is being able to share my heart story and give inspiration to others, which the British Heart Foundation recognise, and that. So like I hate sort of blowing my own trumpet, but like British Heart Foundation awarded me the Heart Hero of the Year, and it was so weird being there. And it's not for the Atlantic; it's for the ability to tell the story, and that was what was so rewarding. And it even feels hard. Like, for me, it feels hard to like tell you that. Yeah, actually,
why?
I don't know. Like the fact that I was awarded what I hate the like notion that like I'm like telling you this story about that I won an award. It's quite a weird feeling. You know?
Well, my like when I was talking to you and I was telling you about awards when I've been given awards in the past.
You can't talk about it.
I don't talk about them. I get a horrible feeling like, am I blowing my own trumpet? I don't really want to talk about it. Yeah. But it's actually a recognition of something that you've done. And when I'm giving recognition to someone else, it's so easy. But when it's myself, I get like you were just getting. Then I get
I get like this like, but it felt very rewarding and it was very emotional that award was. It's not about the award; it's about that other people have heard my story and have found it useful in some regard, and this is why the sort of the
that's brilliant.
Of it is.
And I was going to ask you what draws you to Norway, because I've seen your pictures and you were talking about it. It's a place, first of all, I've never been, and I'm definitely going because I really love your top because it's cool.
It wouldn't suit you, mate. You need shoulders like that.
It also helps the shoulders. So it looks big. Yeah.
A lot of the pictures and stuff that I've seen on your Instagram, there was one of them where you swam. Oh, yeah. One of the biggest.
The lock.
Locks.
That's the narrowest. It's the narrowest lock. So I swam across it.
10 degrees or less.
Yeah. But that was real spur of the moment thing. So like there was a guy that the Norway story is, I love Norway because of like the pragmatism and they're like a bit, so the story that really probably sparked the whole row is I was on a hunting trip and we had stopped, someone shot a moose. And I'm standing in this cabin, and how I got on this trip is also a really weird story as well. But we'll brush over that. And then we're standing in this cabin. It's like 2 degrees. It's snowing, and I look up at the mountain that we're halfway up, and I was like, I bet you like we do, like bet the views up there is really good. And like the Norwegians were like, go and see. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, go and see. He's like, well, stop talking about it. And I'm sure that the Nike slogan, just do it, was invented by a Norwegian. I like to do it. And it translates really well, which is bara gjøre det, which is like, just do it. Like, yeah. And bara is like just, and it like, that is a Norwegian like thing. So they were like, gave me a radio and a GPS, and I'm like, see you later.
Really?
And so like went up to the top, like, and it's like this, looked over the fjord. I was like, this is a really good view. And then like we walked out, like me and my mate walked out, and that was probably like the like, and that is the reason I love Norway, like the pragmatism of like, just do this. It's no nonsense. It's very much a like meritocracy, as it not a merit, but it's very much your respect comes from the things that you do.
Wow.
Rather than, and your actions, rather than like any sort of status. And obviously it's a beautiful country. You can wild camp, you can go anywhere. So you can walk for 3 days, not see anyone, like pristine. I should work for the Norwegian Tourist Board, really.
Oh, mate, that's right up my street. That.
Yeah,
I'm going.
It's amazing. You love that.
I'm going.
You just described yourself, though. You just said it's more about your actions than status, which is basically what you just talked about doing these things, not about the like getting the award, because it feels a bit weird talking about it. That's this almost a status thing. It's almost like an ego boost, right? These things that you're doing are more important for the reason why you're doing them as to actually the status that it gives you. So that's probably, again, you just describe why you like
that's
Norway.
Like Norway. Yeah, exactly. I feel very at home with that sort of attitude. Yeah. So you're going to go there? You'd love it.
No, definitely. Somebody, is it the Arlan Islands that are near there or something? There's this group,
Lofoten?
It might be. There's like these islands that basically you can rent like an Airbnb on an island that's just your own little island, all self-sufficient and everything. You just get like a little boat up to the jetty and you stay on this island, but it's these group of islands, Arlan Islands or something like that, up in Norway. But because me and Mish have been up to the Arctic Circle, went up to like Finland, right past up top to see Northern Lights, and then somebody else was saying that Norway is a really, really good place to see them if you want to go and see them. But we'd seen them. But I've looked at Norway and seen like the camping and the hiking and the mountains and all that, which is obviously I love, but never been.
Yeah. That's the other thing. I'd love to like take people as like part of that journey to like outside their comfort zone. You know, people are like successful in business, work in the city, and we'd just like to go outside and step outside that comfort zone and like have to pee in a bush. I mean, not more than that, but yeah. And then like eat food that you've bought, and like you can like take water from the streams, and it's quite easy camp, as in there's water everywhere, so you can you don't have to carry all your water. And then if you want, there's like these remote cabins that you can join, and the sort of honesty box sort of thing. You like just go, they're all open.
Oh, I love that.
And then you just like pay your 50 quid, your 50 quid for the night, and you have a bed, and you just keep it clean, and you can help yourself to food, and you just honesty.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Won't last 2 minutes in Manchester. No honesty box around there.
All food's gone.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. Do you go there often then?
Every summer I try.
Every summer,
a couple of trips.
Were you ever doing it?
100%, 100 million%. That's the kind of stuff that you need, I think.
I was thinking of doing a guided trip this summer, so just small. Like I think, just like six.
But talk about that.
6 people. Yeah, they'd love to do it. It was there's the national. So coincidentally, one of my best mates who I used to go to or played rugby with in South Africa. His 5 times great uncle is a chap called William Cecil Slingsby, who wrote a book called Norway, the Northern Playground. And he was from Yorkshire somewhere. And he was one of the first people to climb all the peaks in Norway in like 1830. And so this is my South African mate who's like, and so we followed his footsteps one year and then went to climb this mountain.
No way, that's
and
cool.
and that's in the Jotunheimen, which is like the national park, about 5 hours north of Oslo. But it's beautiful. But yeah,
that's on the cards then. I think we should do it.
No, definitely. Yeah, you spent a bit of time down in South Africa as well, haven't you?
Yeah,
Cape Town.
played rugby there for a year.
Bosch and
Stellenbosch wine. Yeah.
Wine, because I've been to is it Delgraaf or Wilgraaf?
Delgraaf, yeah.
That was
they're opposite Takara winery. So if you have lunch at Delgraaf, you look over to Takara and they're like...
I've got a picture of it. Yeah, because I was stood there with the cheese. We had a cheese board with Cammy and Lisa, a cheese board and a tasting session, and I was just stood taking all at the side, and they're like, "Are you not having some of this?" Or just taking pictures of the mountains.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Love it.
There's something about mountains that are quite like cathartic.
Oh,
mountains
big time.
and sea together, like Norway and the fjords, and South Africa with Table Mountain. It's just something quite relaxing about the contrast, isn't it?
Mate, we need to do that then, and head on this this guided tour of Norway.
So before we wrap up, what's next? I'm joking. No.
That was a good answer, that though. I didn't expect you to give that answer. I'll be honest. And I was going to ask the question because it's always that thing. It is like when people push it, because obviously you don't do things by halves, Elliot. But your drivers are there, and it's your purpose. But you flip the coin there for like the what is next thing. I think what you're doing and what your plans are, from what you've learned from that, is so much more valuable. Yeah, I can get that from you.
Thanks, mate.
Wicked.
Right, go on then.
So the feature is Pass the Book. So our previous guest, he was a lovely lad, came down, and his name was Jack Holford, and he's left a book, but it's a special book, this one.
Yeah, it's actually, this is probably one of the most special ones we've had, because I think it's even handwritten on the front, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's actually a book written by him.
Oh, wow.
And it's called Man Up.
And we won't go into it, but it's a fantastic book. We actually mentioned it on the last episode because it was Jack, but for anyone who hasn't heard of the previous episode, we're going to leave the link for this in there as well in this episode. But it's a fantastic spin on what that term actually means in today's culture, right?
Yeah.
So incredible.
It's
book.
quite intertwined actually with that whole identity and just one of the most sort of interesting other concepts that I've sort of thought about for years is like, in life we walk through this field, right? And we need to get to the other side, and there's so many different ways to do it. But there's different furrowed paths that we can all walk in. So like being a man up, is this furrowed path that has been walked for centuries, but you don't have to walk in that path. So like what society's opinion of man is gets buried into this path. But if you step outside and you want to take some aspects of that path, you can walk in the weeds a bit, but it takes a little bit more strength to step outside of this furrowed path into the weeds to get to the other side of the field. And you might do a foot in like the Christianity path or like the feminine side of things. And so it's that's really poignant actually for things I think about a lot.
I love that.
Yeah.
You send it there.
It's pretty much what that book's about. So I think based on what you were saying before, Elliot, I think you'll like it. It's got quite a bit of stoicism in there as well, which is really good. Yeah, it's wicked.
Thank you very much, chaps.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Big
everyone.
love.
Okay.